I have a course, I call it Foundations Painting, and it's a structured course about color and how color shapes relate to each other and how they change depending on context. It's 9 weeks, and I generally do 2-week sessions, and then the final one's a 3-week session. And each color session has a limited palette with a still life that doesn't line up with that palette. And the reason I set up limited palettes is because it's easier to absorb and understand in a smaller range. And the reason I set up the still life that doesn't correlate is so they have to think about the qualities of those colors and how they represent them on the painting. 3 major ideas that I talk about are temperature, which is warm and cool, intensity, which has to do with saturation and weakness of a color, or bright and dull. There are different ways in which we talk about it with the painting vocabulary. And then there's value, which is the simplest thing, which is just light and dark, which exists in drawing, and the other things are additions to color. For example, one of the exercises is without white. It's cad red, cad yellow, and ultramarine blue. No white. And it's an exercise about how to create value with color, not just light and dark. So they have to do all these nuances, how they have to change a green to make it more neutral with the red, or how they make it slightly warmer. You know, if they're representing something that's white, which is cooler than the yellow, how they manipulate those color choices and how they reflect spatially in the canvas. So it's enormous amounts of observation and learning how shapes and color create space. And what you do is you start to make things believable, even though they're not accurate. Working from 3-dimensional life, you actually cannot copy because it's 3-dimensional and you're transforming it into 2-dimensional. And with these exercises in my color class, I push it even further because you can't just assume something's red and what you assume red is. I'm painting a color shape in relationship to another color shape because, again, this is a flat canvas that is made up of color shapes. It's not a person, it's a painting. And that's a really important thing for students to understand, as well as myself, that I'm painting a painting. And so how does that develop? So we start in class with, let's say, complicated color intersections. Let's say I might have started right in here to start, and I circle out. So I'm not painting one head and then another head or an arm or an ear. I'm painting color relationships. And as I do that, they start to become representational. And so that's the goal, is how to create things that aren't of this earth but are completely true in our imaginations, make them believable on the canvas. But that takes time. So it's an exciting danger. How I want my students to start learning how to paint in terms of about context always. So there's a lot of opening up of people's minds, and so the lessons are open and broad enough to be available for whatever level each individual's at. And I do the exercises every so often to inform myself, and they're not easy, because again, but they are accessible no matter where you are. You're going to access and be challenged with what you need. That's how the lessons work. A lot of schools and teachers do not give this structured idea about color and application. And what I've learned is that you can't just teach a theory class, because it means nothing without practice. It's like learning how to drive in your living room. It's not going to work. You've got to do it. On the other hand, if you're just doing something without the concepts explained to you, it's hit or miss for possibly ever. So it's a really nice combination of theory and practice that I pull together.